Welcome to our deep dive, all about the Yeti. You sent us this really interesting collection of articles and stories and even a YouTube video about this
Yeah.
legendary creature, and clearly you're looking for some answers about this mysterious being, so
Yeah.
you've definitely come to the right place.
Yeah, you've certainly given us a lot to unpack here. It seems like this Yeti has just captured human imagination for centuries,
Oh.
and for good reason.
Yeah, we've got everything from that mysterious death in Arunachal Pradesh, which really caught my attention in that YouTube video, to eyewitness accounts from famous explorers.
Mhm.
And we even have a story about a smuggled Yeti finger, which sounds like something straight out of a spy movie.
Right, yeah, and of course we can't forget the DNA analysis
Oh,
of
yeah.
supposed Yeti remains.
Yeah.
That's where things get really interesting from a scientific perspective.
Okay, so let's dive in. Where do we even begin with a legend like this?
But I think a good starting point would be to understand the origins of the Yeti myth itself.
Sounds good to me. Lead the way.
All right, so the word Yeti actually comes from the Sherpa language,
Okay.
and it basically translates to cliff-dwelling bear.
Huh. Interesting.
And interestingly, early accounts often depict the Yeti not as this terrifying monster, but as a creature that's part of the local culture
Yeah.
and even religion.
Oh, yeah. I read about that in one of the sources. There's this 12th century Tibetan Buddhist text called the Mani Kabum. It tells a story about the Yeti's origin as a descendant of a bodhisattva monkey and a rock ogress.
I have to admit, I'm not totally familiar with what a bodhisattva is.
Ah, yes. In Buddhism, a bodhisattva is a being who has achieved enlightenment,
Okay,
but chooses to delay entering nirvana
okay.
in order to help others attain enlightenment as well. So this text basically frames the Yeti as a creature with a divine connection, which is a pretty interesting twist.
That is fascinating. It kind of reminds me of how different cultures around the world have these mythical creatures that are often tied to their spiritual beliefs.
Absolutely. And the Yeti is no exception.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that there are mentions of this creature.
That go even further back.
Further back, how far back are we talking?
So, for example, there's a legend that Alexander the Great, when he was conquering parts of India in 326 BC, actually inquired about the Yeti.
Wow.
Apparently, the locals told him that this creature only lived in the highest, most remote mountains. Even back then, the Yeti was seen as this elusive and mysterious being.
Wow, that's incredible. It seems like the Yeti has been a source of fascination and speculation for centuries.
Exactly. So from there, we start to see more modern accounts of the Yeti begin to emerge, especially in the 19th century.
Right. This is where those descriptions of the Yeti start to evolve, isn't it?
Yeah.
I came across a few accounts from that period, like the one from Brian Hodgson, a British naturalist who described encountering a hairy bipedal creature in 1832. He initially thought it was an orangutan, but his account really fueled interest in the possibility of an unknown primate in the Himalayas.
Right.
And then there's Major L.A. Waddell, who in 1889 spotted these strange footprints leading up a glacier, which further sparked people's curiosity.
Yes. Those accounts definitely added fuel to the fire.
Right.
But it was really the term abominable snowman that launched the Yeti into global consciousness.
Oh, absolutely. That name definitely has a ring to it. I can see how it would capture people's imaginations.
But it's actually a bit of a misnomer.
Really?
The term originated in 1921 from a journalist's mistranslation of the Sherpa phrase, meto kungmi. The original meaning is closer to man-bear-snowman, which is quite different from the image that abominable snowman conjures up.
So the Yeti gets a PR makeover, not necessarily for the better.
Exactly. It's a classic example of how language can shape our perceptions, even when it comes to mysterious creatures.
Right.
But the story doesn't end there. In 1951, we get what might be the most famous piece of evidence in the Yeti saga.
Oh, here we go.
The photographs of massive footprints
Okay.
taken by Eric Shipton on Menlung Glacier.
Those photographs really caused a sensation, didn't they?
They absolutely did. Published in newspapers all over the world.
Wow.
They fueled a frenzy of expeditions, with everyone eager to find the source of those mysterious tracks.
Yeah. And this brings us to the 1953 Daily Mail expedition, right? This was a major undertaking, wasn't it?
It certainly was. The Daily Mail, a British newspaper, poured over $1 million in today's money
Wow.
into this expedition. They were determined to uncover the truth about the Yeti. One of their key stops was the Pangbosh Monastery,
Right?
which supposedly housed the Yeti's skull and scalp.
Okay.
They managed to acquire a hair sample,
Okay.
but later analysis revealed a surprising twist.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting. What did they find? Was it Yeti hair after all?
Not even close.
Yeah.
It turned out to not be hair at all.
Wow. Talk about a letdown. But that didn't deter everyone, right? There was still someone determined to continue the search for the Yeti.
You're thinking of Tom Slick, the Texan millionaire and oil man who devoted years of his life to searching for the Yeti. He took a very different approach, proposing that there were actually 3 types of Yetis.
3 types. Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
Slick believed that one type was a supernatural being,
Oh,
while the other 2 were physical creatures that could be found in the Himalayas. He organized and funded multiple expeditions to remote regions, hoping to find evidence to support his theories.
so did he find anything to back up his claims?
Sadly, we may never know. Slick died in a plane crash in 1962 before he could publish his findings. His death left a lot of unanswered questions and fueled even more speculation about what he might have discovered. It's a real what-if moment in the history of Yeti research.
That's amazing. It's almost like the Yeti mystery claimed another victim, even if indirectly. So we've got all this intrigue and speculation surrounding the Yeti. It's no wonder that even governments started getting involved.
You're absolutely right. The Yeti mania was so intense that in 1959, the U.S. and Nepal actually created joint regulation
Wait, really?
regarding Yeti hunting.
They had laws about hunting Yetis. That's incredible.
They sure did. Anyone seeking the Yeti had to pay a royalty fee, and hunting the creature was strictly prohibited.
Oh, wow.
And if anyone managed to capture a Yeti, they were required to hand it over to the Nepali government.
That is wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they were taking the possibility of the Yeti's existence very, very seriously.
I guess this was all happening right around the time that the Yeti was having a major moment in pop culture, too, wasn't it?
Exactly. We had movies like The Snow Creature and The Abominable Snowman, and even Tintin, the famous comic book character, went on a quest for the Yeti in Tintin, Tibet.
It really does feel like the entire world was captivated by this mysterious creature. But I'm guessing not everyone was buying into the hype. There had to be some skeptics out there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
People who were questioning all these stories and sightings.
And that's where the story takes a fascinating turn as scientific inquiry begins to challenge those deeply held beliefs about the Yeti.
Okay, this is where I think we should pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground from ancient legends to the height of Yeti mania. But now I'm eager to hear what the skeptics had to say and how they started to unravel the mystery. All right, so we've journeyed through centuries of Yeti lore, from ancient tales to those thrilling expeditions in the mid-20th century.
But now I'm ready to hear what the skeptics had to say. Did anyone manage to poke some holes in this legendary creature's story?
Oh, they definitely did. And one of the most intriguing figures in this skeptical camp is Peter Byrne,
Okay.
an explorer who went to extraordinary lengths to obtain evidence, even resorting to smuggling.
Smuggling. Now that's a story I want to hear. What did he smuggle and how does it tie into the Yeti mystery?
Well, Byrne managed to get his hands on what was believed to be a Yeti finger from the very same Pangbosh monastery
Oh.
we discussed earlier.
Okay.
He even enlisted the help of actress Gloria Stewart to smuggle it to London for analysis.
Wait, Gloria Stewart as in the Hollywood star?
The one and only.
That's quite a story. So
Yeah.
what happened? Did the analysis confirm it was from a Yeti?
Unfortunately for Byrne, and perhaps for Yeti enthusiasts worldwide, the analysis revealed that the finger was actually human.
Wow. So much for that piece of evidence. But the skeptics didn't stop there, didn't they?
Not at all. Another prominent figure who transitioned from Yeti believer to skeptic is Reinhold Messner, the world-renowned mountaineer.
Right.
He initially dismissed the Yeti as pure myth, but then had an experience in 1986 while trekking in the Himalayas
Okay.
that shook his skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
He encountered a large, dark creature, something he couldn't explain, and it sparked a 12-year quest to uncover the truth about the Yeti.
So he went from complete skeptic to believer based on that one encounter. That's quite a turnaround. But did he actually find anything during his 12 years of searching?
He did find something, but perhaps not what he initially expected. His years of research led him to believe that the creature he saw, and perhaps many of the Yeti sightings throughout history, could be attributed to a Himalayan brown bear.
Really?
He even wrote a book detailing his findings, suggesting that the Yeti legend was based on misidentifications and cultural folklore.
A bear. So we've gone from mythical creature to potentially just a case of mistaken identity.
Right.
But were there others who shared Messner's view?
Absolutely. Zoologist Ernst Schaefer and Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man to summit Mount Everest,
Right.
both voiced similar skepticism, suggesting that most Yeti sightings could be explained by known animals like bears or even langur monkeys.
Okay, so we've got explorers finding bear footprints, famous mountaineers attributing sightings to known animals, and a smuggled finger that turned out to be human. I have to admit, things are starting to look a bit shaky for the Yeti. But this was all before the age of DNA analysis, right? I
Yeah.
imagine that must have had a major impact on the debate.
You're absolutely right. The advent of DNA analysis brought a whole new level of scientific rigor to the search for the Yeti. And in 2014, Brian Sykes, a geneticist at Oxford University, conducted a groundbreaking study that seemed at first to breathe new life into the Yeti legend.
Okay, now we're talking. This is where things start to get really interesting.
Yeah.
What did Sykes' research involve, and what did he find?
Sykes gathered over 30 hair samples from museums and private collections, all purportedly from Yetis, and subjected them to rigorous DNA testing. And to everyone's surprise, 2 of the samples didn't match any known species in the genetic databases.
Wait, so there were actually 2 samples that couldn't be identified. That must have been huge news for Yeti believers.
Yeah.
Did they finally have their proof?
It certainly seemed that way at first. But further analysis by other scientists revealed something quite interesting.
Okay.
Remember those 2 mysterious samples?
Yeah.
It turned out they belonged to a rare subspecies of Himalayan brown bear.
Are you serious? So, once again, the Yeti is revealed to be a bear. I can only imagine how disappointed those Yeti believers must have been. But it's amazing how DNA analysis can unravel these mysteries, isn't it?
It really is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And the scientific scrutiny didn't end there. In 2017, a team of researchers from New York University conducted an even more extensive DNA analysis, this time examining hair bones and teeth, all thought to be Yeti remains.
So they really wanted to settle this debate once and for all. What did their analysis reveal?
Out of 9 samples, 8 were identified as belonging to known bear species: Asian black bears, Himalayan brown bears, and Tibetan brown bears.
Okay.
And the 9th sample, it turned out to belong to a dog.
A dog? Seriously? So, after all this, searching all this scientific analysis, we end up with bears and a dog. I can't help but laugh. But it does raise an interesting question. If the evidence points so strongly towards bears, why do Yeti sightings and stories persist, especially in remote regions like Arunachal Pradesh?
That's a great question, and it brings us back to that mysterious death you mentioned earlier, the one featured in that YouTube video, right?
Exactly.
The worker in Arunachal Pradesh who was found dead under strange circumstances, with rumors swirling about a Yeti attack.
Exactly. That story really captivated me. What more can you tell us about it?
Well, intrigued by the story, journalists from BBC Radio decided to conduct their own investigation.
Oh, wow.
They traveled to Arunachal Pradesh, determined to separate fact from fiction. They carefully reviewed the police report, looking for any details that might suggest Yeti involvement.
Okay, so did the police report mention anything unusual? Any Yeti footprints or strange hairs found on the body? Anything that could support the Yeti attack theory?
Surprisingly, the police report didn't mention any of that. It simply stated that the cause of death was unknown.
Huh, that's unexpected. But what about that hair sample?
Right.
The YouTube video mentioned that a hair was found on the body that couldn't be identified. Surely that must be a clue.
That's what everyone thought.
Yeah.
But the BBC journalists managed to track down the doctor who examined the hair.
Okay.
And guess what? It wasn't even a hair. It was a piece of plant material, likely from a tree.
A tree. So this whole Yeti attack narrative was built around a misidentified piece of tree bark.
It seems that way. The journalists concluded that rumors and fear, coupled with pre-existing beliefs about the Yeti, had distorted the reality of the situation. In a place where stories of the Yeti are so deeply ingrained in the local culture, it's easy to see how a tragic death, especially one with an unknown cause, could be attributed to a mythical creature.
That's fascinating. It really highlights how our perceptions and cultural narratives can influence the way we interpret events, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. So it seems like science has effectively debunked the Yeti myth. But I'm still curious about something. Why are we so drawn to the Yeti in the first place? What is it about this creature that continues to capture our imaginations, even when the evidence points to more mundane explanations?
That's a question that goes beyond science and delves into the realm of psychology and cultural anthropology.
Yeah.
And it's something that's worth exploring further.
I agree. I think it's time we shift gears and try to understand the deeper meaning behind our enduring fascination with the Yeti. Okay, so we've gone from, ancient legends and these thrilling expeditions to the meticulous world of DNA analysis. And it seems like science has given us a pretty clear answer when it comes to the Yeti.
Yeah.
Like it's likely just a bear or maybe a misidentified monkey or even a dog.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that keeps nagging at me. If the Yeti is just a case of mistaken identity, why does this myth persist? Why are we still so fascinated by this creature, even in the face of contradictory evidence? It just feels like there's something deeper going on here.
I think you're onto something. The Yeti isn't just a creature. It's a symbol. It represents something that resonates deeply with us, something that goes beyond the physical evidence.
Okay. I like where this is going. Tell me more. What does the Yeti symbolize?
Well, think about it. The Yeti is often portrayed as this creature that lives in the most remote and inaccessible parts of the Himalayas.
Right.
It's a creature that exists on the fringes of our world in a place where nature is still wild and untamed.
Yeah, you're right. It embodies this sense of mystery and the unknown.
Exactly. And in a world that feels increasingly controlled and predictable,
Mm-hmm.
the Yeti represents a kind of escape, a reminder that there are still places and things out there that we haven't fully explored or understood.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like that quote I read in one of the articles you sent. We always strive for what we cannot have, and in doing so, neglect the treasures already in our grasp. Maybe the Yeti is a symbol of our yearning for the unattainable, our fascination with the things that lie just beyond our reach.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
Okay.
And while we may never find concrete proof of the Yeti's existence, that doesn't diminish the power of the myth.
It actually makes it even more powerful in a way.
I agree.
Yeah.
The Yeti myth encourages us to stay curious,
Right.
to keep exploring, to embrace the unknown.
And to appreciate the incredible diversity of life that we already know about. I mean, think about all the amazing discoveries that have been made in recent years. The Popa langor, that monkey with the cool glasses markings, was only discovered a few years ago. And those legless lizards in Angola, the skinks that look like snakes. Who needs a Yeti when we have real creatures that are just as fascinating right here on Earth?
Exactly. And we're still discovering new species all the time. There's so much wonder and mystery left to uncover right in our own backyards.
So maybe in a way, the Yeti myth reminds us that we don't need to look to these fantastical creatures to find wonder and excitement.
Perhaps. But I do think the Yeti serves a valuable purpose. It reminds us to never lose our sense of awe,
Right.
to never stop asking questions, to never stop searching for answers.
Well said. So to wrap things up, it seems like the Yeti is more of a cultural icon than a flesh and blood creature. But the search for it, the stories, the scientific investigations, they all reveal something about ourselves, about our desire to make sense of the world around us.
The Yeti may remain a mystery, but maybe that's part of its enduring appeal.
Exactly. It invites us to keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop seeking the extraordinary, even if what we find isn't what we initially expected. Who knows what amazing discoveries await us just around the corner? And on that note, we'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Yetis? Do you believe in the possibility of undiscovered creatures? Share your theories, your questions, your own experiences. We're all ears. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.